Exposed. The terrifying and sinister rules behind my haunted mechanic shop in Ohio. The old mechanic shop loomed in the twilight like a crooked tooth, its windows grimy and dark. The worn sign creaked ominously in the wind, swaying ever so slightly, whispering secrets of what had long been abandoned. Halfway up the dirt road leading to the shop, it stood as both a beacon of hope and a harbinger of dread. Creepy shadows danced inside, eager to spill their dark history onto anyone brave enough or foolish enough to step inside. Little did I know that tonight would attract another lost soul. Just as I was about to lock up for the night, my phone buzzed with a desperate plea. "Hello? Is this the mechanic's shop? I'm stranded. Please help." The voice trembled. Claire. They said her name was. Skepticism gnawed at my gut. But then again, there seemed to be no choice. I couldn't let her face whatever awaited her in the darkness alone. Within moments, she stood at my door, eyes wide and darting, like a deer sensing wolves lurking nearby. I could feel the tension hanging between us, thick and heavy, as we got to work on her rusty vehicle under the flickering fluorescent lights. My unease snowballed. The repetitive clang of tools echoed around us, but strange sounds emanated from the shadows, scratches and whispers, like ghosts playing at hide and seek. "What's that?" Claire gasped, jumping back as something shifted in the corner of my peripheral vision. Though I saw nothing, I cursed under my breath, trying to shake the fear that sat heavy in my chest. "Everything's fine," I lied, my hands trembling on the wrench. I tried to lighten the mood, but Claire had become as pale as the moon outside, her voice now quaking as she told me chilling tales of missing people in our town. It felt like my heart was beating louder than my tools, the dread curling around me tight like a serpent. Each name she listed felt like a dagger piercing the fragile veil of safety I clung to. Each missing person, each cherished face swallowed by darkness, had all been connected to a man revered in our community, a supposed saint, whose kindness concealed a sinister truth. Then, without warning, the air thickened. I sensed something stirring behind the garage door, just beyond the sliver of light illuminating our space. Claire's eyes widened, and panic set in like ice. I could hear it too, the shift of weight and the murmur of voices on the other side. Suddenly, the ground felt more unsteady with every flicker of the fluorescent lights above us. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The tension soared, resonating through the metal walls, which seemed to breathe in tandem with our rising fear. We found ourselves huddled together, piecing together the ghastly puzzle. Shadows moved like living creatures, eluding our frightened gazes. Novels and legends whispered secrets of lost souls eternally bound to the mechanic shop, a trap that devoured trust and hope. At that climax of terror, we turned, breathless, to face the shadows before us. An oppressive silence hung in the air, thick and choking. My stomach dropped as I finally faced the figure watching from the darkness. Its eyes glinted maliciously, a predator hidden among the wreckage. The nightmare was just beginning. Would we escape the clutches of a town engulfed in darkness, or were we doomed to add our names to the growing list of the lost? The figure in the shadows lingered just out of reach, a looming silhouette that sent icy fingers crawling up my spine. It moved slightly, as if testing its intent, before retreating further into the darkness. Panic surged through my veins, and I instinctively drew closer to Claire. Her trembling frame echoed my dread, our breaths quick and shallow. "Did you see that?" Claire whispered, her voice barely a breath above the oppressive silence, her eyes wide with terror. "Just stay quiet," I urged, but the shiver in my own voice betrayed me. I could hear my heart thumping, a panic drum as I glanced around, searching the corners of the mechanic shop for any kind of weapon. The old wrench felt flimsy in my grip as shadows danced, mocking our fear. Then, The whispering returned low and sinister, like wind rustling dead leaves in an abandoned graveyard. It beckoned, promising secrets cloaked in darkness. I caught snippets, snarls of laughter, gasps, agonizing cries, but most haunting were the names echoing through the air. The names Claire had spoken moments ago. They twisted in my mind, a spectral choir inviting us deeper into dread. I swallowed hard, signaling to Claire to back away with my heart pounding like thunder. "We need to leave," I said, urgency bleeding through every syllable. But before we could move, the garage door shuddered a sickening creak that echoed like a ghostly laughter. The lights flickered violently, then dimmed, bathing us in an unsettling gloom. Instinctively, I grabbed Claire's arm, pulling her toward the entrance. But fate seemed to mock us, as the heavy door slammed shut with a resounding boom, sealing our fate. "Let us check the windows," Claire shouted, adrenaline igniting her as she dashed toward the nearest one. I followed, desperate to escape the nightmare. We fumbled with the rusty latch, our fingers trembling. It should have been a simple task, but the latch refused to budge, as if it had grown roots in the frame. The shadows seemed to grow thicker, warping the world outside into a disorienting swirl. Behind us, we heard a slow, deliberate dragging noise, like feet scraping against the concrete floor. The whispers took shape, becoming taunts that crawled under our skin. "The mechanic has a secret, a truth buried among the lost." "Shut up," I yelled into the darkness, rage exploding as fear threatened to consume me. It only seemed to provoke the shadows. The dragging noise drew closer, and the murmurs intensified, rising to an eerie crescendo that made my skin crawl with a surge of desperation. I sprinted back to the garage door, pounding my fists against the cold metal. "Help! Someone! Please!" The words fell out of my mouth, hopeless and plaintive. My heart sank as I realized it didn't matter. No one would hear us. Claire's voice trembled near me. "Look," I turned, following her gaze. The darkness in the corner seemed to solidify, far more menacing than before. A face emerged, jagged and twisted, a grotesque reflection of torment. Its eyes glowed with an insatiable hunger, and it started to creep towards us, grinning, revealing teeth sharper than any blade. Instinct kicked in. "Claire." I grabbed her hand, dragging her back toward the other end of the garage. My mind raced, calculating each move, but the air felt thick and suffocating, like swimming against a current of dread. "Do you see that?" she asked, her voice cracking. My stomach lurched. There, among the discarded parts and rusted tools, shadows coalesced into forms. There were figures' faces I recognized from the town's missing posters. Their mouths opened in silent screams, their eyes pleading for help that lingered just beyond grasp. "What the hell is happening?" I shouted, horrified. The spectral figure advanced, its smile widening as if it found our terror delightful. "You don't have to be lost. Join us." I tightened my grip on Claire's hand and whispered urgently, "This ends now." Yet, behind the figure, there was a flicker of movement, a lingering shape emerging from the pit of darkness that changed everything. A new terror that wrapped cold tendrils around my heart, telling me we were far from alone. Just then, the whispers coalesced into one. It's time to choose, and we had to decide. Were we joining the lost, or were we willing to fight back against the darkness? The air buzzed thick with tension, every shadow writhing like a living thing. My resolve faltered as the hideous figure merged with a torrent of darkness, slipping silently between the desperate faces frozen in agony. It felt like being trapped in a waking nightmare, a pulse of madness coursing through the garage as the whispers wrapped around us, curling deeper into our minds. "Choose wisely," the figure said, its voice a chilling whisper that echoed in my bones. It reached out, fingers long and claw-like, extending as if they could grasp my very soul. I tore my gaze away, horrified and desperate. "Claire, we have to move," I hissed, yanking her toward the farthest corner of the shop, away from the taunting grins of the lost. Our feet stumbled over crumpled newspapers, remnants of a life once vibrant now suffocated by decay. The darkness seemed alive, closing in, isolating us further, feasted on our fear. Shadows lurked in the crevices, waiting for us to falter. I dragged Claire toward the back, praying for a way out. We reached an old, cracked window, but it was covered with rusty bars of prison. "No, no," Claire whimpered, her voice barely above a whisper. I could feel her fear radiating off her, mingling with my own. "I'll find a way," I grunted, determination pushing through the terror. I scanned the rest of the shadows, my heart racing, fueled by the sickening pressure of time slipping away. The spectral figure had vanished into the oppressive dark, but I could feel its eyes on us, waiting for the moment we de-break. The whispers morphed into a haunting chant, echoing in a syncopated rhythm that made my head spin. "Stay. Join. Embrace a line with them, and we can find peace." A voice echoed, softer yet disturbingly close. I wanted to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. Panic turned into a sickening dread, my stomach churning as cold sweat trickled down my back. "Claire." I turned to her, desperation clawing at me. "We can't give in. Are you with me?" She nodded, but her wide eyes spoke of a mind unraveling. I don't know how to fight this," she stammered, pulling against an unseen force, as if the shadows themselves were pulling her deeper into despair. Desperation surged within me. Remember the old lady at the diner? How she said every place holds a secret. This shop has one too, we just need to find it. Claire hesitated, doubt flickering in her eyes. What if the secret is us becoming like them? Before I could respond, the garage rumbled. The floor vibrated beneath us, sending a cold wave of fear spiraling through my gut. I backed up instinctively, instinct driving me from the center of that intoxicating dread. Claire and I collided against the rear wall, the weight of darkness pressing down, thick like fog. "Help us!" cried a voice from somewhere deep in the gloom, shivering with a mournful longing. "We can show you the way." "No," I shouted, disbelief and fury rolling together. "You're just lost souls. But we're still alive." Suddenly, an overwhelming roar of rage erupted around us, and the lights flickered, an angry strobe that sliced through the shadows. The spectral figure emerged again, shaking with fury, its form shifting and twisting, a nightmare become flesh. Its mouth opened wide, revealing a void that seemed to swallow the light around it. "Choose," it rasped, its tone turning dangerously sweet. "You can join us, or you can endure the pain of choice." A terrible pulling sensation gripped at our feet, tendrils of darkness wrapping around our ankles like vines, squeezing tighter and tighter. I could feel my breath quickening, a panicked rhythm that suffocated any rational thought. Clara's grip on my arm tightened as she gasped, her voice laced with raw fear. "What do we do, Josh?" In that awful moment, I knew we weren't just battling for our lives. We were bargaining for our souls. "We fight," I shouted, adrenaline surging through my veins, as I wrenched my hand free and swung the wrench wildly at the advancing shadows. But would our fight be enough? The garage trembled again, and the chant grew louder, more insistent. It struck a chord of pure terror. Shadows converged, pushing deeper, wrapping tighter. And then, with a thunderous crash, the walls trembled as a shape burst through the door we thought was sealed. It was a figure, cloaked in darkness, eyes gleaming with a horror all their own. It stepped inside, and everything changed once more. Who or what had come to claim us now? The air thickened with dread as the new figure emerged. It stood tall and rigid, a living embodiment of shadow, its presence stretching to fill the corners of the garage. The flickering light overhead cast distorted shapes on its form, a grotesque silhouette that set my heart racing. Each pulse echoed in the silence, a countdown toward an inevitable confrontation. "Who are you?" I shouted, my voice trembling yet defiant. The darkness wrapping around us squeezed tighter, pulling at my ankles like a vice. Claire pressed against me, her breath rapid, panicked. "We are the guardians of this domain," the newcomer spoke, its voice singing with 1,000 echoes, a haunting melody tinged with malice. "It is time for you to choose your fate." "What fate?" I barked, rage stirring within me. I felt the wrench in my hand, the cool metal grounding me, reminding me I was still alive. We want to just surrender. We want to escape. Claire's grip tightened again. Josh, this isn't a game. What if they really want us to shut up? I hissed, cutting her off. The words tasted bitter, but fear morphed into anger. No one is taking us anywhere. The figure tilted its head, the shadows around it swirling. Ignorance breeds suffering. You know not what you provoke. With those words, the dark mass shifted, splitting apart to reveal an ominous path behind it. The once sealed door now lay wide open, a yawning chasm beckoning with the sweet promise of escape. A low, mournful dirge began to rise from the depths, clawing at my sanity. It was the noise of mourning souls, trapped and lost, crying for salvation or revenge. Do we go? Claire's voice was frail, almost lost beneath the overwhelming din. Her eyes darted to the darkness now spilling into the garage, desperate for answers. No, I shouted, the fervor in my voice echoing against the walls. That's what they want. They're tricking us. I glanced back toward the creature. Its eyes were sharp, glimmering with hunger. Don't listen to it. Stay close. But as I turned, I noticed other figures emerging from the shadows, faces twisted in despair, but shimmering with the same desperate hope I had seen before. Join us, they wailed, their voices intermingling with the hymn of the dark. It's better here. You'll find peace. Peace? I spat, feeling bile rise in my throat. By giving up our lives? What kind of peace is that? You're just like them, lost. The cloak of darkness around the figures quivered with laughter. It resonated in my bones, a hollow echo that fed my rising panic. Your will is weak, Josh, the first figure cooed. Why fight when surrender is so sweet? So easy. With a deep breath, I swung the wrench again, propelled by instinct. Metal clanged against the floor, sparks flying into the dark. It felt like a warning shot, a declaration of war. I couldn't let the darkness win. I couldn't let it pull Claire under. But the shadows thrummed with power, laughter reverberating around us, and the figures moved languidly toward us, an undulating tide of despair. They began to chant once more, words echoing like eerie lullabies. Stay. Join. Embrace. The walls trembled again, the air heavy with the scent of decay and broken dreams. I pushed against the darkness, urging Claire backward, back toward the wall, but it felt like we were stuck in quicksand. Then, from deep within the thrumming dark, a new sound cut sharply through the chaos, a loud crack, like ice splintering beneath a heavy weight. It was followed by an agonized scream, a voice rising in sheer terror. Claire. It wasn't her voice, but it was familiar. A chill raced down my spine as I realized it belonged to someone we had left behind. No, we have to help, Claire screamed, her eyes wide with terror, tearing at my grip. They're in there, Josh. They need us. But as I pulled her closer, I felt the shadows tighten around us. They were closing in, dragging us toward the open door and the lost souls that beckoned us. Choose now, the figure whispered directly into my ear, a searing warmth that made my skin crawl. Become one of us, or lose those you hold dear. In that moment, I was faced with a choice that seemed impossible, a choice that would define our fates, a choice between salvation and surrender. And just as I opened my mouth to respond, the lights flickered once more, revealing a sinister twist. There, behind the figures, something larger loomed, something primal, something ancient. What horror awaited us beyond that veil? The shadows pulsed at the edges, an oily darkness slithering toward us, as if eager to consume every ounce of light. My heart thundered like a caged animal. Clara's hand felt cold and damp in mine, a lifeline slipping through my grasp. What do we do, Josh? Her voice faltered, terror etching lines of panic across her face. The mournful wails of the figures grew louder, weaving into a tapestry of cries that echoed painfully. I could almost see their specters, gnarled and twisted, reaching out with desperate fingers. I don't know, I admitted, fear curling around the edges of my mind. But we can't let them take us. They were shadows, but there was something palpable about them, something that threatened to pull us into the depths of their despair. A hollow laughter rang out, growing in intensity as the figures swayed to the rhythm of their murmurs. casting glances over their shoulders as if waiting for an unseen master to make its grand entrance. Look, I pointed toward the gaping darkness behind them. There, just beyond the threshold, a shape began to materialize. It rose like a mountain from the depths of despair, large, looming, impossibly ancient. Glowing eyes flared, sharp against the dark like hungry stars, and they narrowed on us with a predatory gleam. Run! Now! Panic exploded in my chest. I tugged at Claire, my feet driving forward as the undulating tide of shadows closed in around us. We stumbled backward, but it felt like we were moving through thick mud. The path was consumed in an engulfing darkness, dragging us toward that gaping void. Wait! Claire screamed, her eyes wide with fear. We have to help. Help who? Claire? I yelled, frustration boiling over. You heard them, they're already lost. The echo of her name rang out again from the abyss, more strained this time, a desperate cry that curdled my blood. The voice was getting closer, clawing at the edges of my mind. I recognized it too well. Josh, I can't leave them. Clara's eyes brimmed with tears, her resolve crumbling. We have to go back. Are you insane? I shouted, my heart racing faster than I could comprehend. Or do you want to join them? There's nothing for us there. But it was too late. The shadows breached the perimeter, collapsing like a wave over our feet. I swung the wrench in a wild arc, striking something solid in the dark, and a screech echoed back, sharp and anguished. It threw me off balance, and I felt Claire stumble beside me, the grip on her hand slipping as dread filled the air like a miasma. Stick together, I gasped, clutching at her again while the figures surged closer. They weren't mere illusions. They were hungry, yearning for something. We had a flicker of life, a spark of hope, a beating heart. Join us, embrace, they sang, the sonorous choir weaving through every crevice of my mind, working to break my resolve. But I couldn't let them win. Claire, listen to me. We're not doing this. We're leaving. As I pulled her toward the wall, something cold touched my back, a breath that felt like death itself. A shadow latched onto me, squeezing tighter and tighter until I gasped for breath. The monstrous figure behind the others lurched forth, monstrous and indistinct, shifting between worlds. No, you have to choose, it rasped, its voice vibrating through the air, thick with evil. Join us or watch those you love perish. A scream this time. It was Clara's. I turned to find her eyes locked on the shadows, face pale with fear. Was I losing her to that despair? The darkness surged to claim her, but I wouldn't let it take her. Claire, fight it, I shouted, desperation twisting my insides. I lunged for her as she was ripped away, darkness snatching her foot as she staggered. Her gaze pierced my heart, drowning me in fear. Josh, help me. A surge of rage pushed me forward. I gripped her arm tightly, pulling her back toward me as the shadows writhed, collectively screaming in fury. Not today, I roared, summoning every ounce of strength. But even as I fought, I saw the primal shadow rise behind the others. It loomed larger than the figures, a swirling mass of void and fury, and with it came a soul-chilling exhalation. I will decide your fate. But just then, from deep in the maw of darkness, the ground shook, sending ripples through the air. It cracked and splintered, revealing a gleaming silver and edge of light through the consuming black. Was it a way out, or another trap waiting to ensnare us? As the shadows screamed, I felt the weight of Claire in my grip, and I faced the impending horror head-on. The choice was about to crush us: escape or stay. Don't let go. But was it the light or the darkness that had more power? In that moment, everything hung precariously in the balance, teetering on a knife's edge. And as I took a deep breath to burst forward, the world shattered into chaos with a bone-rattling roar that reverberated off the walls. I have a choice you cannot outrun. The voice rumbled as everything began to swirl. What would the shadows take from us next? The air thickened, cloying and oppressive, as torrents of shadow crashed against us, clawing for purchase on our bodies. I gripped Claire tighter, praying she wouldn't slip from my grasp. Panic twisted in my gut as the light flickered, a blinding slice through the darkness teasing our senses. "Whatever you do, don't look away," I barked, trying to inject urgency into my voice. The shadows writhed angrily, their whispers entwining around us. Join us embrace they pressed forward, relentless in their desire. Their cold tendrils brushing against my skin like fingertips from an unseen hand. I could hardly distinguish their forms, but every screech sent chills skittering along my spine. "Josh!" Claire's voice trembled, strained against the chaos. I can't fight them." I wanted to tell her she could, that together we were stronger. But beneath the weight of despair, doubt clawed at my heart. "You can. Just remember who you are. You're not theirs. Hope is dead, Josh. Look at them," she screeched, her eyes darting wildly, drinking in the fate that awaited us. The figures splintered the edges of my vision, each wail a reminder of the souls trapped in that endless abyss, making me question if we were merely prolonging our demise. The ground beneath us quaked, throbbing like a living entity, threatening to swallow us whole. I pulled Claire closer, forcing her to face me. "We can't give in. It's exactly what they want." With that, I threw all my weight against the trembling ground, pushing us toward the light that shimmered just ahead. Its brilliance sent shockwaves through the shadows, causing them to hiss and recoil. But the primal form surged forward, its voice echoing like a gong in the pit of my soul. "You seek the light? You will pay the price." I hesitated, caught in a stun of dread. Pay the price? What would they take? I could hear the malice coursing through the words, an ancient promise of suffering. "No more, Claire," I shouted. Turning her to me again, we moved together, one step at a time. The light pulsed insistently, looms of hope mixed with fear, beckoning us like a fleeting promise. I felt Claire's fingers shake against mine as she nodded, her resolve reigniting. A tiny flame in the relentless dark. With a shared breath, we ran. Footsteps echoed like thunder against the walls of despair, a cadence of resistance. I could feel the shadows reach for us, scraping against my back, icy and insistent. The deeper we plunged into that creeping light, the louder the screams of the shadows grew, turning into a cacophony of rage. Suddenly, there was a blinding jolt as we collided with the light. It enveloped us, bathing our skin in warmth. But the cold terror of the shadows lingered on the edges, still hungry, still watching. "I can feel them, they're still behind us," Claire gasped, her breath hitching in fear. "Don't look back. We're almost there," I urged, pushing through an invisible threshold of pain as the shadows snapped at our heels. Desperate. Then, like a crack splitting the earth, the light faltered. It flickered and dimmed, shadows creeping back, whispering promises of despair. My heart raced like it was trying to escape. "Josh, something's wrong," she shouted as I tried to pull her closer. But the darkness suddenly lunged, separating us with a violent shake. The screaming became unbearable, a tempest of voices blending into a single horrible roar. "Josh! No!" Claire cried, reaching for me, but already lost to the surging tide of black. Something sharp pierced my arm, a shard of shadow, feeding off my fear. I stumbled, but I couldn't afford to fall. I had to reach her, and then I understood. "Claire," I yelled, my voice cracking with triumph and terror. "We have to choose. Do you trust me?" In that moment, as the last vestige of light wavered, I plunged further into the darkness, desperate to find her. Would our bond be strong enough to break the hold of despair? Or were we marching toward a fate darker than we could imagine? The shadows writhed around me, ready to take everything. Would I find Claire in time? Or was the abyss already claiming us both? Darkness swallowed me whole, relentless and suffocating. My heart hammered, loud in the deafening silence. I fought against the terror creeping into my bones. Where had Claire gone? She had been right there, fighting alongside me, and now she felt like a fading memory. "Claire!" I screamed, my voice chased away by the void. The shadows circled like predatory beasts, whispering lies and taunts. "You are all alone, you can't escape." Panic surged through me, a bitter taste filling my throat. But I couldn't let despair consume my thoughts. If Claire was lost within this horror, I had to push deeper into the darkness. I closed my eyes, letting my instincts guide me. "Claire, I'm coming," I shouted, each word a desperate act of defiance. The shadows momentarily halted, as if gauging my resolve. The air thickened around me, pressing down, trying to crush the fire growing inside. Suddenly, I felt a soft pull, a thread connecting me to someone. It was faint but real, and full of warmth. My heart raced. I lurched forward, stumbling through the pitch black, gripping that thread as if it were a lifeline as I moved forward. The shadows shrieked, their voices merging into a deafening crescendo. "You should give in. She has gone. Join us." I collapsed to my knees, clutching my head, fighting the voices. "No," I shouted, rage fueling my words. "You don't control me." With a shift in the air, the whispers grew fainter, but the heaviness remained. Gritting my teeth, I pressed on, dragging invisible chains behind me. I had to find her, and then I saw it, a flicker of light in the distance. Pulsed like a heartbeat. Oh God, was it a trick? Was it bait? The shadows coiled tighter around me, doubt twisting like a knife. I hesitated, then pushed down that fear. "Please be real," I whispered to the flickering glow, my voice shaky with desperation. I sprinted towards it, the shadows clawing at my legs like ravenous creatures trying to reel me back into their abyss. "Josh! Help!" Claire's voice broke through the chaos, piercing the darkness like a beacon. I surged forward, dread melting into determination. The light spread like dawn, illuminating a path as I fought through the last vestiges of doubt. "Claire, I hear you," I shouted, driven by the urgency of her plea. I stumbled into an open space, the light blooming around me. And then, there she was, tangled in dark strands, frantically reaching toward me. "Josh!" she cried, her eyes wild with fear, desperation etched on her face. I darted toward her, extending my hand, grasping hers tightly. I felt the spark of life pulse between us. "Hold on. Just hold on." But as I pulled her closer, the shadows roared back to life, howling with fury. "You cannot escape. This is where you belong." With a rush of cold wind, the darkness lashed out, striking my back like electric whips. I grunted against the pain. "Stay with me, Claire. We've got to push through." As the shadows crescendoed, the light flickered violently, swaying as if caught in a hurricane. I felt the ground tremble beneath us, a warning of an impending collapse. "Josh, what do we do?" Claire shouted over the chaos, tears streaming down her face. I glanced back at the yawning maw of the darkness, fear crawling up my spine. Beyond the shadows, I could almost see something shifting, a form taking shape, something monstrous. "I don't know," I screamed, feeling time slip through my fingers like sand. "But we need to make a choice. We either fight or surrender." The shadows thrashed wildly, the voices merging into a single, terrifying roar. But amid the chaos, a flicker of clarity shone through. This was our moment, our choice. "Do you trust me, Claire?" I shouted, my words nearly lost in the howling darkness. "Always," she cried, her grip on my hand tightening. I nodded, determination hardening in my chest. "Then on 3 we run for the light." But as I counted 1, 2, darkness clawed forward, its breath hot and rancid against my skin. The figure loomed larger, ready to claim us, to pull us into the depths we feared most. 3. Together we bolted toward the light, heartbeats synchronized in a desperate rhythm. It was now or never. But as we crossed the threshold, I realized the light was already dimming, and we were not out of danger yet. Would the light provide refuge, or merely lead us into another trap? As the shadows lurked hungrily at our heels, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for us, something far darker than what we had left behind. What awaited us on the other side? The moment we crossed into the light, an eerie calm washed over me, but it felt wrong, like the silence before a storm. The warm glow faded rapidly, leaving only an agonizing twilight. I blinked, adjusting to the dimness, my heart still pounding. I swung my head around, but the shadows were gone. Instead, We stood in a dusty garage, tools hanging limply on the walls, cars lined like forgotten memories. Where are we? Claire whispered, her eyes wild. I felt her grip tighten as we surveyed the surroundings. A chill crept in, and the hair on the back of my neck stood up. Inside this garage, fear hung in the air like the smell of oil and metal. I turned slowly, peering into the corners, trying to make sense of our new prison. I'm not sure, I muttered, unease lacing my voice. The light around us had dulled to a sullen gray, barely pushing back the surrounding shadows. Suddenly, a clanging sound echoed from the depths of the garage, the sharp, jarring noise slicing through the thick silence, and then nothing. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears. Did you hear that? Claire asked, her voice trembling. Yeah, I nodded, looking towards where the noise had originated. My instincts screamed at me to run, but some twisted part of me was drawn to the source. We should check it out. Our footsteps echoed like a heartbeat as we moved deeper into the labyrinth of rusting metal and suffocating shadows. I could feel the gaze of something unseen, lurking, tracking us, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. Is this a trap? Claire asked, hesitating. Maybe, but we can't just stand here. I picked up a wrench from a nearby workbench, its weight easing my frantic heart. We need to find a way out. Then, against the far wall, I spotted a door barely ajar, the faintest sliver of light spilling into the darkness. Relief surged within me, but it was undercut by an instinctual warning. The shadows, though temporarily silenced, lingered at the edge of my mind as I drew closer. Something scratched against the metal frame, sending prickles down my spine. A twitch in the door handle, a ghostly grip. I glanced back at Claire, who was pale but resolute. Should we open it? She whispered, her breath hitching. I think we have to, I replied, thrusting the wrench forward like a shield. With a shaky hand, I grasped the handle and pulled. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow passageway lined with flickering fluorescent lights. The whir of a failing bulb filled the air, a stuttered heartbeat in the solitude. Just as we stepped inside, the floor beneath us trembled, the walls vibrating, and the pulsating shadows shifted. I turned to Claire. Fear bloomed in her eyes. Do you feel that? Yeah, she breathed, glancing over her shoulder. It's like something is coming, something angry. In that instant, a low growl erupted from the shadows behind us, a primal sound that turned my blood cold. I felt bile rise in my throat. Run, I shouted, and we bolted down the hall. The growl morphed into a roar, echoing off the walls, and the light flickered harder, a strobe warning as the shadows surged behind us. Josh, it's too dark. I can't see, Claire shouted, her voice breaking. We need to keep moving. Focus on my voice. I yelled back, adrenaline coursing through me. But the passageway seemed endless, stretching into infinity with no respite, only panic and fear leading us deeper into whatever horror awaited us. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out entirely, plunging us into an oppressive darkness. I reached for Claire, but the space around us warped, the walls closing in as if the very structure was alive with wrath. Josh! She screamed, her voice swallowed whole by the expanding void. I could feel the shadows creeping upon us, their icy tendrils slithering around my legs, pulling me down. Claire, I'm right here, I yelled, but her cries faded, lost in a disorienting chaos. A pounding filled my head, a drumbeat of despair. And then, a familiar voice emerged from the darkness, low and menacing. You've chosen poorly, I stumbled, terror ripping through me as I realized this. Torment had only just begun. What dark fate awaited us within the depths of the garage? Could we escape the clutches of the shadows that now surrounded us? I lunged blindly forward, my pulse racing like the engines of the cars we had left behind. My hands flailed against the walls, feeling the coarse texture of peeling paint and rusted metal, but they offered no comfort. A cold draft crawled through the suddenly narrow hallway, chilling my sweat-soaked skin. Claire, I called, desperation flooding my voice. Where are you? A faint whimper answered, and it sliced through me like a knife. I can't find you. Her words were lost in the growing darkness, swallowed by the void that wrapped around us like a living shroud. I kicked at the ground, a rough surface beneath my feet suddenly giving way to smooth tiles. I cautiously moved forward, hoping for an escape from the oppressive darkness and the terror that stalked us. Breath held tight in my chest. I willed myself to hear her. A thud resonated from my left. My heart jolted as I turned, ready to fight whatever lurked in the shadows. "Claire?" I risked whispering, my heart racing with every passing moment. "Stay away from the shadows." The urgency in her voice rang like an alarm. I felt the adrenaline kick in, urging me not to linger. "They react to movement. If they sense you." The growl came again, deeper this time, closer, rumbling like thunder in the distance, a sound that promised death. Panic surged within me, threatening to break me if I didn't move. I felt along the walls, searching blindly for a door, a window, anything that would help me break free from this tight grasp of terror. At that moment, a sound like nails scraping against metal echoed behind me, instantly freezing me in my tracks. "Josh?" Claire's voice trembled, barely audible, but I could tell she was terrified. "I'm here. Move to my voice," I shouted back, gritting my teeth against the rising tide of fear. I took a step closer to where I thought I had last heard her, but the shadows flickered around me, making the darkness dance mockingly. Another crash, louder this time, shattered the air. The ground shook. I stumbled, the wrench clattering from my hand. I crouched to retrieve it but felt the icy fingers of the shadows coil around my ankles, squeezing like a vice. "Claire, we have to find each other." My voice echoed, trembling as the darkness pushed closer. Suddenly, the lights flickered back to life, revealing a room filled with broken machinery and an array of twisted parts. In the middle stood a figure, hunched over, its features hidden in the shadows. It turned slowly, its face illuminated for just a second, and I felt my heart stop cold. That it was a grotesque semblance of a man deformed, with eyes sunken too deep, and a grin that stretched impossibly wide across its face. "Welcome," the figure rasped, voice grating like rocks against each other. The growl behind me escalated to an ear-splitting roar. I spun quickly to face the shadows, wrench raised as the figure lunged forward, saying, "No one ever leaves here." Everything crashed down at once. The lights flickered again, and I was plunged back into darkness. I could feel it moving, coming for me, and I gasped, mouth dry as sandpaper. "Josh!" Claire's voice was distant now, an echo slipping away. Had she been captured? I gritted my teeth against the mounting dread, refusing to let despair take hold. I had to find her. I was not going to let the darkness win. But where could she be? How could I battle something that was more than just shadow? Suddenly, memories flooded my mind, the fears of childhood. Tales of those lost and never found lingered in the back of my thoughts. This was where they warned us to stay away from. The haunted places that whispered in the midnight air. I took a deep breath, grounding myself. "I'll find you, we'll get out. Together." Just then, a chilling crash rang out behind me again. But this time it wasn't shadows. The walls responded, shifting like they were alive, trapping me further inside this nightmare. And a thought beeped at the back of my mind. What if it was all true? What if our choices would determine our survival? "Josh!" Claire's voice screamed again, closer this time, filled with despair. I lunged toward her voice, but did I even know the way? The darkness twisted around me, tightening like the grip of a vice. But how do you run from something that knows your every fear? With every ounce of strength, I dashed toward an uncertain fate, the gnawing dread claiming my sanity piece by piece. What awaited at the end of this dark passage? Could saving Claire mean losing myself? Blind terror propelled me deeper, and as the growls behind me roared louder, a question clenched at my gut. What does the garage truly want from us? The air grew heavier, each breath steeped in suffocating dread, as if the shadows conspired to steal every ounce of courage from within. Heart racing, I sprinted toward Claire's voice, my mind fighting against the creeping despair. "Claire!" I shouted, even as the flickering light ebbed, teasing me with a cruel hope. "Josh!" Help me. Her voice splintered. It felt like breaking glass. I could hear the fear coiling around her words, pulling her deeper into some unfathomable abyss. With every step I took, the shadows writhed closer, seeking to drag me back into their clutches. I'm coming, I yelled as panic clawed up my throat. Yet I pushed forward, weaving through the chaos of the garage, each sector filled with memories of the townsfolk who had vanished, whispers threading through every crevice. I stumbled into a larger chamber, where the stench of oil and rust mingled, thickening the air. A dim light flickered overhead, illuminating a gaping pit at the center of void where the shadows congregated, swirling like a living creature hungry for its next meal. Josh! Claire cried again, and I thought I felt her presence revive that flicker of hope. But the darkness seemed to consume it, feeding on my fears as I ran toward a shadow still deeper, poised to swallow us whole. Stay there. I'm almost there. I strained to maintain my voice, trying to guide her, even as the chilling figure of the mechanic from town loomed into my thoughts. The same figure who had once been revered, now twisted into something grotesque. This can't be his doing, we're stronger than this, I thought. Suddenly, a powerful tremor shook the ground beneath me, and I fell to my knees, bracing against the force. The growl echoed once more, furious and primal, clawing at my resolve. I managed to push myself up and stagger toward a spectral light, a ghostly illumination twinkling like distant stars caught in an endless night. Josh, I can't hold on. Claire's terror jolted me forward. With me, I bellowed, mad determination marking every syllable. I sprinted toward Claire's voice, my eyes strained through the darkness, searching. A flicker of hope ignited with every step I took. I'm right here. Then, there she was, a figure entwined in strands of darkness, just ahead of the threshold where the light flickered best. My heart surged at the sight, but the shadows lashed out, desperate to pull her in. Claire. I lunged forward without thinking, seizing her wrist and pulling with every ounce of strength I had left. Hold on. The shadows howled in rage, scrambling against us as I felt her warm fingers grasp mine, their desperate grip anchoring my hope in this cosmic storm. Together, we were a force of light trying to break through that darkened veil. Fight, Claire, I urged, feeling the shadows swirl around us like a tempest of disbelief. I don't know how, she cried, glancing back as we struggled against the weight of darkness, burdened by unseen forces. Remember who you are, I shouted, urgency coursing through my veins. We're not just faces in the town. We're alive. We choose to fight. She swallowed hard, fear lacing her eyes, yet a flicker of recognition dawned. I trust you, Josh. With that affirmation, she took a step forward, the darkness retreating just enough, and we began to move together. Pulse quickening, I propelled us toward the faint light at the end of the passage, the shadows nutting forward, desperately clawing for us. The growls morphed into shrieks, anger spilling into chaos, but we ran. We ran hard. Each step brought us closer, the cold tendrils waning with each stride we took towards safety. Almost there. I could see at the threshold, the exit bathed in radiant warmth. Hope blossomed like a flower through cracked concrete. But just as we reached the gap, a violent rush collided with us. The shadows surged back, hungry, fierce, a wave of pure fury. You can't escape. A chilling voice echoed, the grip of despair closing around my throat. I gritted my teeth against the despair, squeezing Clara's hand, entwining our destinies. Together, with a final push, we leaped forward, into the light, and the shadows clawed at our backs, a grotesque cacophony of rage hammering against my ears, and then silence. Bright, blinding light enveloped us, pulling us from the darkness and casting our weary forms into a world where shadows didn't reign. Did we make it? Claire whispered, blinking against the brightness. Around us, the mechanic shop stood in tranquil stillness. A protective aura washed over us, erasing the harsh memories of anguished souls from moments before. I pulled her into a fierce embrace, relief flooding through me like a river breaking free from a dam. We fought. As the sun began to rise over the horizon, painting the world in hues of gold and soft lavender. We stepped cautiously into the unknown, no longer victims but survivors, hearts beating with the knowledge that together we could brave anything. The mechanic shop behind us felt like a distant dream, a shuddering reminder of what we faced and a testament to our resilience. "I'll never forget," Claire said quietly, her gaze set firm on the path before us. "Neither will I replied, glancing back one last time at the haunted garage, now silent as the dawn promised hope and a new beginning. We locked arms, ready to write our own story as we walked toward the rising sun. I raised a fist in triumph. We had survived the shadows, and whatever lay ahead, I knew we could face it together. At alert. This is the moment. If you connected with our story, you need to subscribe right now. Don't wait even one more second. Smash that like button like it's your lifeline, and flood the comments with your thoughts and theories. Share this incredible journey with at least 5 friends who need to see how we beat the shadows. Your support keeps us going, and your engagement ensures you won't miss the next thrilling tale. Let us do this.